But teams are like children. They're watching us. They're watching how we operate, how we handle people. And so the pillars of environment, for example, is almost the rules of how we operate as a team.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Boxx. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Boxx.
Hey, welcome back to the No Labels, No Limits podcast. I'm Sarah Boxx, your host, and today's guest takes us beyond surface level leadership and into the neuroscience of mindset, personal growth, and professional excellence. Meet Manny Fiteni. He's a leadership strategist, author, and CEO of My Growth Corporation, and has spent over 30 years bridging the gap between personal transformation and business performance. And in my mind, those two really need to meld. Manny's breakthrough methodology, mindset congruency, is actually based on aligning the conscious and subconscious minds to unlock authentic, empowered leadership. So that goes from navigating the corporate finance world to founding platforms like Mind Growth 360. And Manny brings his real world experience and wisdom into every conversation. So I'm going to ask him about how personal alignment, resilience, and mindset mastery can elevate all of us, leaders, whether we're formal leaders with titles or leaders in our own lives and communities, and teams. And also to talk more about his own experience with a banking situation. So with that, let me formally welcome Manny to the podcast. Hi, Manny.
How are you, Sarah? Thank you for having me on.
I'm thrilled to have you on. So as my guests, who are mostly, according to our statistics, in Northern America, Northern USA, and Europe, they might notice you have an accent. So where are we getting you from?
You're getting me from Queensland, Australia.
Nice. And it's winter for all of us who are talking about the heat and experiences in north of the equator. For Manny, it's winter. So isn't the world interesting? Okay, so I want to start, with your concept of mind congruency, because I really think it's fascinating. Can you explain what it means and then link to how that can help us transform leadership?
Sure. So a lot of the concepts I'm about to talk about, people have heard of. They may be interested in this, or maybe they're not, but they've probably heard in general. So science generally accepts the fact that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious. The conscious mind has short-term memory. It's where it's more analytical, and it's what also recognizes that we actually exist. But then you have the subconscious, what you can't see. And the subconscious, for better words, is like an operating system. It's a system that was developed generally many years earlier when you were very, very young. And it has a great influence over the conscious mind. So for example, let's say you had a goal and you went out to achieve this goal. This could be in a business world. Or your boss asks you to do something and you go to achieve it, but then you start getting these thoughts. Well, I can't do that. These thoughts are coming from our pre-programming. Generally, a lot of this programming has come from our parents. So I've had this conversation many times before, but if you think back when you were a kid, or even when you're not a kid, you usually say to yourself, I'm not going to do what my father does or my mother does, right? Everybody kind of relates to this. But guess what? You tend to do it. As you get older and you maybe become a parent yourself, you're imitating their programs. Why? Because when you are very, very young, the conscious mind is not in existence, it's building. The subconscious is what's there. And it's the subconscious that is where the operating system is. So you are being fed through observation, I guess words, but more observation of how to operate. And this is how your life is coming about. So think about times when you've gone to achieve something in life and you just gave up. Now, what generally happens is the operating system is not set for that particular goal. I always use fitness and health because it's a common one at the start of the year for a lot of people. And statistics show that lots of people pay for their memberships at the start of the year, but they never finish them. They get through a few weeks, they get really dedicated, they go in, and then one or two things happens. Either they have rebalanced the subconscious, and that usually takes a little bit of time, or the subconscious takes over and says, this is all too hard, I'm getting sore, I've got other things to do. And so it takes control. So there's this inner battle that we have internally that affects every part of our life, not just leadership, but it does affect leadership because you are bringing with you in your subconscious your value systems, which determines on how you treat other people within your teams.
Okay. So are we, like you mentioned, when you're really little, your conscious mind's still not formed, but your subconscious is. So in that example that you're giving about the gym membership, and I smile because I think they estimate they're good for about 14 weeks. When you're a member of a gym, they said, don't bother coming in until mid-March. And then
why do you think it's a subscription?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like take a break because the jam up at the gym and the machines will have settled by that point, which I thought was interesting. They said it's a pattern. We can see it. People are all gung-ho. And then to your point, it's like something's inconvenient, whatever. So from that, though, what I wanted to ask is, we're not aware as kids, but in that situation that you gave, are people still unconsciously letting the subconscious run, or are they aware and hear that inner battle going on?
I don't think people are aware. A lot of things we do in life are triggered. There's some type of trigger. You think of phobias, for example. Why is it that some people are scared of heights? And heights is actually a really common phobia, by the way. Every second person I feel like has it. So why does some people have this phobia, yet someone else who's just as healthy and nothing wrong with them mentally has a similar phobia, or has this phobia as opposed to someone else? And that's usually because there has been something that has created it. And in the case of phobias, it's usually the fight or flight, which is in the amygdala of the brain. So if a dog comes up to you and you were frightened by a dog as a child, then every dog, doesn't matter how small they are, is something that can be dangerous. And there's usually a trigger. You're not aware of the trigger. It's usually a very quick thing. There's a trigger and you act out the operating system that you were given or was created at that time.
So I understand the whole fight or flight because that creates a physiological trigger, right? It just gets your whole body like that. But in leadership, or let's stay with the gym thing. I'm not pounding on people who quit gym memberships, but because it's so common and people can relate to it, is that what triggered the disinterest in going through the discomfort and getting beyond it of the health?
Firstly, it's not a created habit within the operating system itself, the subconscious. So I'll give you an example, and I talk about this in my book, but it might help you understand it. So when I was very young, I left school and joined the banking industry with the intention of becoming an accountant later on. And so I went to the banking industry, and in those days, bank robberies were a weekly event. Didn't matter which bank, there was always a robbery somewhere. And so it was very common here in Australia at the time. I mean, I probably look a lot older than you realise, but there was a lot of bank robberies at the time. So when you join a bank in those days, you were dealing with a lot of cash. Everything was cash, and you were trained that if there was a bank robbery, there's like a list. These are the things you pay attention to, etc. What they wear, balaclavas, whatever the case may be. So when I joined the industry almost from day one, and I moved around to 2-3 different branches, I would play a scenario in my head most days, whereby I would imagine if someone came in, what would I do? How would I handle this situation? Would I go and tackle them? Would I, how am I going to handle this? So when I was about 22, I was working in a bank, and it was about 10 to 4, I found out later on, which is near closing time. And someone was quite loud. And I used to work in an office. I was what I call a lending officer. I worked for the main manager, and I did his work basically. He was quite a loud manager. So when you hear a loud voice, you naturally think it's him. So I'm working away. I've got someone else assisting me because I've got considerable amount of work. And I look up out of my office, and my office basically was wood up to a point, and then it was glass, not quite to the ceiling, but you could see out. And I sat behind the tellers at the time. And I looked up, and there was a guy with a balaclava in his head. And so I realized that this was a bank robbery. Now, what he effectively did is he had 5 bags. He threw them over the counter, told the lead teller, fill the bags with cash as quick as you can. Now, because I had rehearsed this, I said, okay, he's carrying the gun in his left hand. It's a sawn-off shotgun. He's got a balaclava on his head. He's wearing, I can't remember, he's wearing a suit or something at the time. So I was paying attention to everything. Now, I stood up, went to walk out to take over. I'm 22 years of age, dealing with people a lot older than me. One of the second managers was in the office next to me. And I stopped and thought, no, I might get somebody shot. So I told people to get down, people that were in my vicinity. And then I stood there and then realized I need to set the alarm off, because alarms were set off a certain way in the branches for police to come. So I went to turn around, went to turn it on. It had been set already. I turned back around and I stood there and I watched. And every person but me was under a desk. They were all petrified. Well, naturally, they're petrified. And he was quite aggressive. And he was aggressive so much to the point that he went to the lead teller and he said, hand me the bags. And she handed 4 bags back. He had handed 5 bags, or so he thought. The 5th bag fell on his side, and so he took the sawn-off shotgun and he put it to her head. And it was like the longest 30 seconds you can think of. When he ran out, I ran to the door with 2 minds to either chase him, but instead I shut the door because we had witnesses, etc. Now, what the point I'm trying to make is, how could a 22-year-old have that mindset when people older than him were falling apart? I mean, I literally went to check on the staff later on, and they drank every bottle of alcohol that we had in our bar upstairs. Now, that's not because I'm a hero or because I'm anything special. It's because I had retrained my operating system of how to react when the time came. And this applies in lots of circumstances in our life. If your operating system is designed to do one thing, it's going to fight whatever you're trying to achieve in life. And this is a lesson we should be taught at school, not just on podcasts.
Absolutely. Because it's like they talk about when you're learning a dance routine or anything else. Once you've kind of patterned it, it's now in memory. It's in muscle memory,
Correct.
all of that. So you are creating new neural pathways and memory
Correct.
change for your brain to fire.
Correct.
Wow. But you had to intentionally, like you said, when you went to a new branch, you would envision how you would react during a bank robbery.
Yes, I did. I did that everywhere I went. And don't ask me why. Because I knew I had worked at a branch when I was about 18 or 19, and the manager was what they call the manager of managers. It was like a manager's club, and he was in charge of the manager's club. But we were a big branch. We were 50 staff. It was very big in those days. And I worked in lending, and I used to hear all these phone. He'd come out and go, so-and-so branch has been robbed, so-and-so branch has been robbed. And so I naturally went through what I would do if this were to happen and I was in it. And I was the only person that the bank would let talk to the union because no one else could do it. Some people would never come back into the bank ever again.
It was too traumatic.
Correct.
So do you use that training or that information in your mind congruency work with people?
I do. It's one technique. You think about they say one of the greatest fears in the world is public speaking. I don't know if that's totally true, but a lot of people don't enjoy it. Doesn't bother me. Oh, it used to bother me. But when you play out in your head, I don't need to do this today, but when I was younger, I used to do this. I used to play in my head what I would say, how I'd open, because it was always the opening that I needed. And then once I had the opening, I could just talk because I knew the subject. And it's a little bit like that. In order to create change, there's a few things. Number one is repetition that we just talked about. Number two is understanding how the subconscious understands things, and it's symbolic and it's metaphorical. So when I train managers, I talk about building stories. So you think about watching a movie, and you watch a great movie and you're really engrossed in it. That's your conscious mind engrossed in this storyline. But if the story's been developed properly, there's usually a meaning behind the story, and your subconscious is picking up all the meanings behind it. Now, if you want to create change in another individual, for example, this could be a coach listening to this or a manager listening to this, learning to build a story, it's either real or not real. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. So effectively, by building stories that build engagement and meaning, the subconscious will understand what you're trying to tell it. And this is one of the methods of creating transformation in people.
Can you give an example of what that might be like?
In a business context, or just in
it doesn't
examples?
I mean, if
well,
it's
think of a religious people, for example. Take a Jesus. Doesn't matter what you believe, but Jesus actually did this. He had what they call parables. He was telling stories to people. These stories created change on how you treat other people. Now, the average person say he's just telling stories. No, he's actually creating change. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was creating change in people's subconscious. So those stories that get told, and that would continue on. So this is not a religious lesson, but this is just an example of someone who understood that in the way he approached creating change in people. The same thing applies with business. Let's say you have a staff member that's just not doing the right thing, or they're struggling, you can tell them what to do, and that's fine. That's from a knowledge perspective. But sometimes if you tell them a story that you relate to, that is your own story or you've experienced, they then start to relate to it. And if you've got rapport with this individual, they then say, I get it. I didn't realize why you were doing what you were doing, but now I get it. So these are subtle things, and maybe some people are skeptical, but this is how we create some of the ways that we create change.
I think they're pretty powerful. I mean, I'm just thinking using metaphor and story tends not to put people on a defensive mode. So like you said, you can tell people and explain to them, which can sometimes make people defensive depending upon what the situation is, right? So here's what I need you to do versus, okay, let me share something with you. And not to diminish it, but to give a different platform for maybe communicating. And so I like how you're using that. And I'm really thinking about what you're sharing in terms of repatterning. I'm calling it repatterning. That may not be accurate for how you talk about it, but it gives an analogy, or you're even talking about Jesus and his stories. You can hear them, but you understand the meaning behind them. Maybe you can't even retell the story, but you can say, well, it's about this, but really what it means is this.
Yeah. And that's kind of the purpose of great orators in the world. They usually can tell a great story, and great leaders do exactly the same thing. And I've been in many conferences, as you may have yourself, where I've listened to leaders, and the ones that are engaging always tell stories. They're the ones I want to listen to. The ones that just talk to us or talk at us, you may turn off.
So let's talk about transformation. And
Sure.
you indicate that there's some pillars that can transform a manager to a leader. Can you describe the distinction between those two names, those two titles, basically, or roles?
So I call them the three pillars. One of them is mind congruency, which we've discussed. The other two is environment and true leadership. So there's lots of different traits that make up a manager. But teams are like children. They're watching us. They're watching how we operate, how we handle people. And so the pillars of environment, for example, is almost the rules of how we operate as a team. We help each other. We make sure that the other person is not left behind. We also have true leadership, for example, integrity. It's one thing to tell everybody what to do and then not do it yourself. What do you think everybody talks about behind your back?
Yeah.
This
What a
person is a
liar.
hypocrite. Yeah, they're a
What a
hypocrite.
hypocrite. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, we don't listen. Yes, we're doing what we've got to do because we want to earn our wage and our pay, but this person has no credibility with us. So they got their job. You make up your own version of why and how they got their job, but they got the job for some reason and they aren't any better than me. And you don't have to be better than your employees at what they do, but you have to take enough interest to understand what they do. Otherwise, you kind of lose the right to give them that. True leadership talks about I talk about different traits, things like sometimes you can remove someone from your team, and that's really hard to do. And doesn't always go well because it's very difficult, but sometimes they respect you. I remember I had a team member. He was a great guy. He was I think he went to the Olympics as well, but he also went to what they call the Commonwealth Games, which is in the Commonwealth countries like Canada and Australia, etc. He was a shot putter. He was 6'4", massive guy. Like I'm almost 6'2", so I'm not short, but he was big. And he wanted a pay rise, and I couldn't approve it. I had to go further up, and some conditions were made of how, what he had to do this. And he didn't do it. He got too busy and decided not to do it. And then my boss said, no, you've had your chance. So it's not like he wasn't given opportunities or reminded about it. But effectively, when he decided to resign, not long before I left, he made a comment to me. He said, Manny, you're tough, but you're fair. Now, this is a guy that can be quite scary for most people because he knew he could use his height, etc. But it didn't bother me. So the point I'm trying to make is that you can still be a strong manager or a leader, but people will respect you if you follow certain things, if you consult with them and listen to them. You don't have to do it all the time. There's different styles of management that are applied in different circumstances. But all our lives are not perfect. So when a manager actually pays attention to what's happening in your life, you kind of buy respect from the person. And I've had people who've had family members that were dying. And I could have easily just said, well, that's not my problem. You come to work, you get paid. You don't work, you don't get paid. But I didn't take that approach. And I've maintained that loyalty from people for years now because I understood that I put myself in their place. So that's kind of the true leadership side of it. And the environment I've talked about is creating an environment that we do this together. Yes, there's some of you that are better than others. Some of you are going to get more accolades than others for different reasons. But together we help each other get there together over the line. It's like running a race. We can all just run our own race, and some of you aren't going to finish in the time frame. Or we can run together and someone paces us. And then we all get across the line. Yeah, I've probably spoken a bit, but that's kind of my
the
thinking.
reason I'm not just jumping in is because you speak in you give a lot of visuals. In my head, I'm hearing what you're saying, but it's coming in visuals, which is great because it anchors it to me better. And I'm thinking about people I know and have worked with, and some who are super, super successful. And what you're describing mirrors the actions of those teams. They're small, but man, they don't leave people behind.
Yeah.
They have conversations that are uncomfortable, but they know it's coming from a place of integrity, and each person holds their piece up. And I can picture that in other situations where it's been all about the one. It's like, hey, I'm at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why we're going to do it. Or even the words are said, but you're thinking, it's just something's off here. It's not congruent. The behaviors
Mm-hmm.
are not congruent with the language. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so valuable to me what you are saying. So you've talked about the pillars, and how, when people said about this, when you're working with folks, Manny, do you work
Mm-hmm.
with individuals or teams, or how do you most work with folks?
Both. Mainly teams. I don't do as much one-on-one coaching. There's lots of coaches today. I do more with a team because I can get. Most organizations don't teach leadership, at least from my experience in my career. So everyone's a manager until they become a leader. So I do deal more with groups because I can take them through a journey of firstly understanding management styles. What are they using? And are they using the same style for every situation? And if they are, then we need to adjust that.
So do you help them understand different styles for different situations?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, for example, I built this out, but I built a card set that we give people if we do workshops with them, with the company, and effectively the cards will cover things like these are different management styles, and you can see that different management styles, etc. So the goal is to say, okay, let's let you identify with what is your main core. We all have a core in our styles. And then let's talk about what works in what situation, what works in another situation. So, for example, there's one that I call the czar. And the czar basically says, everyone do what I say, and I will give all the orders, and everything centers around me. Now, that style works great when you're in a situation that it's an emergency, for example. You can't consult with everybody in the team as the houses are all coming down and this is a cyclone or whatever the case may be. You need someone to make decisions quickly. That is the czar style. But the czar style doesn't work too well when someone wants to grow and someone wants to have a say because they don't listen to anybody but themselves. So there's a time and place for each of the styles. So we teach that part of it because I think that's really important that you understand what are you operating in. And again, this comes back to your mind. What have you developed and why have you developed it? Is this your father's style of how he operated the family? And once this becomes, you bring this subconscious to the conscious level, you start to reflect. You start to say, maybe you're right. I never realized this is what I always do. And I used to wear it as a badge. I'm really cool. I'm in charge. Everyone calls me boss. But maybe you're not creating a team. Maybe you're just creating a group of minions that if you hire someone else in, they're not submissive. They're not going to do what you tell them to do unless you show them why.
When folks learn their styles, I'm actually applying what you're saying to past experiences and people I've coached. But so you're showing these different styles. Do you have them role play different styles or like different situations?
So I have on these cards that I talked about, we have scenario cards. We firstly do all the teaching that goes with it. This goes over a few days, depending on the size of the corporation. First, we give them the education and the teaching, and then we do scenarios, usually in groups of three. One plays, let's say, could be a client or a staff member. One plays the manager that we're trying to train, and one plays the observer. And then there's this feedback because And we also incorporate telling stories. How are you using these stories when you're trying to get someone to do what you need them to do?
I just imagine that after you do these workshops, you hear back from people saying, "Oh my God, thanks. Because this would have been really hard without knowing what I know now from the training and the workshops."
I think some of the feedback is no one ever taught us this. We were given, we were ambitious, or someone tapped us on the shoulder and said, "You're now a manager." And either it's gone, sometimes it goes to their head, or sometimes they're out of their depth. And at some stage they feel comfortable, but they haven't really adopted a leadership style. They've just adopted one type of management style.
Probably the one that got them where they are at that moment.
Probably, a top sales, and I was very good at sales in my younger days, but there's some elements of a salesperson that works when you're dealing, because with clients, you've got to work with them. And if you're a good salesman, will tell a great story always. So there's some skill sets that come with being in sales, for example. But then there's the ego part that comes with sales of, well, I'm earning all this money because I'm so good at what I do. And so everyone should respect me because I did this job. And it's not to say that they don't respect you. It's just if you don't respect them, you lose along the way people who just go, I'll go work for somebody else.
Well, and they can.
They can.
Yep.
But that's not, to me, that's not a measurement of success. That's not to say that you don't remove people who are just not suited to your team. You need to know when to cut the losses. My measurement of success is when I can take someone that was on the edge of failure and lift them. So when I took over a financial planning division in the bank, it was a smaller bank, part of a much larger bank within the country. And I flew to Sydney, which is where head office was. And that's where my manager, there was what they call professional development days. And the team was flown up because it wasn't a massive team. So they were all flown up to join up with another part of the organization. And it was the first time I met my team. And we had a nice dinner, and I worked my way around the table and got to meet all the staff. And my boss pulled me aside and he said, "See those 3 guys over there?" And I said, I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Fire them." I said, "Well, hold on. You've had no management here for 6 months. Like, no one permanent in this role. And these guys are all new 6 months ago." I said, "Why don't you give me a chance to work with them? And if I can't lift them, then I'll agree with you." 2 of them became Rookie of the Year, or nominated for Rookies of the Year across the whole organization. So, but I could have given up on them. I could have just done what my boss said, just fire them. I believe success is when you've raised someone above where they were before. That is an indication of success. Even if they pass you, it just shows you've done your job really well. And it's a shame a lot of managers are not their performance reports are not based on that.
On how they've helped other people get
level. How have they made a difference to their team and created a high performing team? Because most managers inherit high performing teams. You'll go to a management meeting with all the other managers and they'll get called out because their team is writing the most business. And you go, hold on. You inherited that team. What did you actually do to create that team to become that? And it's not usually their whole team. It's usually maybe 2 or 3 people. So my measurement of success is, did I lift that individual? Did I make them more than they could be? And if I did, then at least for me, that's a personal success.
Absolutely. Because they start realizing they can do more and be more, and they start helping other people the same way.
Yep. And that's what I want inside a team.
Yeah. My favorite boss, I've been working since was young, really young. I really kind of like work, but my favorite boss was in my 20s. And like, I'm in a totally new field. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm out of my depth, but I know the basics of what I'm doing so I can get by. And he says, "So I'm going on vacation and you're going to be the night manager." And I'm working a 3 to noon shift, right? night manager. I'm managing union members, right?
Oh, that'd be fun.
So I can't do the work, right? There's a line right there. I can manage and supervise, but I cannot do the work without, screwing them up. So
Yeah.
I said, okay. He says, okay, but here's what we're going to do. You're not going to fail. I've already watched you for 6 months. You know what to do. You're just nervous. So I'm
Yeah.
going to have this other guy come over and be the day manager, but you will have my phone number. You may call me anytime,
Okay, that's good.
24/7. You're the only one who knows how to reach me while I'm on vacation. You can call, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so everything went well. I never had to call him. The guy he had backing me up fell off of a forklift and broke his leg. That was the
Oh,
only
no.
bad part. I'm thinking,
Okay.
where's my backup now? So, but what it taught me was the hardest part is just agreeing to do something you're scared of doing and then
Yep.
stepping into it. But I knew he had my back. And
Yep.
much like you're
That's
saying,
good.
right? I lift someone up and that moved me. And he told me, he says, you do this, and I can go back and tell them you need a raise and a new classification. Because they were never going to, he says, they're never going to move you because all they see you as is clerk. And he goes, you're not a clerk. I go, okay. I'm thinking, I trust you. I'm kind of nervous. But it was that whole lifting someone up,
Yep.
and it has affected my way of working with people ever since.
Yeah. And then you would have changed because your confidence levels would have changed, and you would have realized after lots of interactions that you can do this.
Yeah.
But we also have our own perceptions of ourselves. So when you said you're a clerk and everyone else saw you as a clerk, that's pretty normal in an organization.
Yeah.
This person did this job for the last 2-3 years. That's all I can see them at. I can't see them as my boss. So when we change our perception, we project that out to other people.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's still one of my favorite memories. That and the fact that he told me he knew how to drive a forklift. So when we went, there was a strike, he goes, they're easy to do. Let me show you. So
It's cool. He sounded like a great guy.
he was a great guy. His boss came in and saw me on the forklift and he says, hey, when did you learn to do that? I said, oh, Phil told me that you guys had to do that back, in the old days when all this same stuff happened. And he looked at my boss and he says, are you going to tell her the truth? And he goes, well, if I would have told her I never had done it before, she wouldn't. So, I mean, it's just all this mind stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, that was great. Because he's true. If he says, just do this handle or whatever, I would have been nervous.
Yeah.
He says, it's easy. But anyway, to me, it just cemented in my mind that the mindset you have and your trust and belief in whoever's supporting you and yourself makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So you are building a new social network.
I'm building many things.
Oh, well, share what you're building. I was specifically thinking about Mind Growth 360, but
So
what are you up to?
So I've always had a passion since I left school, probably before I left school, around personal development. And I've attended many, many courses over the years. And obviously technology has changed over the years, but nothing is really geared towards it. So for example, you go do a course and you'll set up a Facebook page, which is not designed for personal development. So there's about 4 or 5 different things that we're working on or have been working on. So Mind Growth 360 is kind of the first thing. It is a social network. It is designed. So on it, people can put podcasts, people can put courses. We can build those things for you. There's obviously a cost to that, but we can also use it. We use avatars using AI. So you've probably seen this before. It's becoming more common is I can take your voice and I can take your face with your permission, obviously, because you're paying us to do this. And we can design a whole course and you never have to stand in front of the camera. Now, that's really cool for people who go, I'm too scared and I make too many mistakes. It saves so much time because all we're doing is typing in the script and it will just talk. So we built the social network. We've built Creators Agency, which is an agency that can do all these things for coaches, et cetera. So you know what? So it's creatorsagency.studio if you're looking for it. Is how to, I need to do social media. I need to do these things. And because we have a lot of technology in regards to doing these things, we can help businesses do this as well. So that's number 2. We launched in the last couple of months a new directory for personal development for everything around growth. So it's called Personal Development House. And if you've got a business or a podcast, or you teach people cooking, for example, you can list your business on there. And it's also a review site. So it does two things. People can do reviews about businesses, but also people can ask for people to give them quotes. So let's say there was 5 people, let's say you wanted a certain service or a coach, you can go, the system will automatically do it once you ask for it. It will go out to different coaches in the area that you choose, and those people can come back, go, yeah, this is my service fees, etc. And they can pick up new business from it. So the whole goal is, yeah, so it's designed to help people who service people in this industry, give them the tools to connect, give them the tools to get new business. We're building at the moment a new app, and the app is, are you familiar with the term flashcards? Have you ever seen flashcards before? Okay. So flashcards are common, and there's about 3 or 4 different apps that do that. So we've built it out that individuals can use it, small businesses can use it, and then schools, universities, and large corporations can use it. So it's more private when you get to the business side of it. You do everything within that. But that's flashcards is one thing. So that's individual self-learning. But then the other one is what we call trivia battles. So let's say, for example, you can do this in a company or a small business. So your coaches could take on this and build this with their clients. And you can upload any document. AI will build it into like a lesson environment, and then it will turn into a quiz. And you start a battle, and you can put into teams. You can turn them into teams. So you could have teams of, say, 10 people, and each team gets to, and the manager or the teacher gets to see how each individual is performing and how their knowledge is improved over time. So it's a quick way, because I had to do a lot of training when I worked in, especially the financial planning industry, constant study. It's a quick way of doing a game that they can compete, and they can see how they're traveling as a team and how they're going as an individual.
It was so funny about that when you talk about that competition as a team through the avenue of a game. It makes me think the team will start to work on strategy together too, if they're beating another team, if they're playing against.
Well, they're not necessarily all in the same room because it's online, right? So they could be in different parts of the world. Yeah. What it does for the manager is, if you've got a topic, and let's say they did the topic in the flashcards and they kind of did okay, like they can get some metrics and they go, and they did okay, but then they get to the trivia, they kind of get to say, oh, they've improved. Because there's more or they've got worse because there's more pressure in a competition. But this then goes down to a classroom. You know, we talk, if there's kids going, oh, you know, turn this into a game environment. There's leaderboards, there's divisions that we have in the individual side. So you can sign up for free. It isn't completely developed yet. It'll be developed in the next few months, but you can sign up for free. You can play it. You can move into there's leaderboards in every, there's badges in every division, and you can move up the divisions and you can compete against other people. And you can basically upload anything. We have to approve it to become public to everybody else, but you can upload any topic. So I could upload your podcast today, and it will take all the major points out of it, turn it into a quiz, and then you can teach anybody else on this particular topic.
Wow, that's super. That's so exciting what you're doing. You're really multifaceted. Your brain, the way you think and put things together.
I think I realized after many years that I'm probably more creative than I realized.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to see the way you're taking all this knowledge and doing different things with it.
So yeah, we have that. We have a few other things, but effectively the app is, hopefully, we think, can be used by, for individuals. If you're under 13, you can't use it unless you're within a school environment. And that's because certain governments have rules around children. But if you're in a school, the school can have as unlimited teams, unlimited people in it, and all they need is the school email address for people to be able to compete.
That is super. So super. So, you know, we've covered a whole bunch of topics here, which I should probably upload and test myself on. But I would like to give you an opportunity to leave the listeners with something that you think will help them as they're kind of working with their subconscious to get more conscious to become better leaders?
I think you need to follow if you're working with people, it's a matter of I follow kind of a system. The first thing is to help someone become aware. And first is for you to become aware of how you operate. So if you took language, for example, you talk a certain way and I talk a certain way, not accent, but just how you approach it. Now, you may reflect on it and go, oh, I'd love to sound like Martin Luther King, for example, right? Somebody who's got a great orator. You can do that. But first thing you need to be aware is how you're operating, what you do in every situation. And then it's a matter of taking it down the next path of, now that you've brought it to your conscious level, is tackling it. What do we need to do to change that? And that can be repetition. And then it is about building the right people around you. Because a lot of people, when they go on their journeys of becoming more, don't realize that the people that are around them are not on the same journey as them, and they will try to bring them back to their level. They do it unconsciously, but they do it.
They do. It's back to your gym metaphor. It's one of the things that make it hard for people to continue on because of the invisible, sometimes drag of others who don't want you to change.
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay. So awareness, building the next step, and then, or repetition rather. And
building, and then building the right people around you. I call it a focus ensemble. If you're trying to focus on something, then you need to have the right people. I didn't come up with this concept, but if you think of a thermostat or an autopilot, in an autopilot's designed in a plane to keep you at the same speed, keep you at the same height. If there's a gust of wind takes you up, it's going to bring you back down. Everybody has it until you eventually adjust it. If all your friends' autopilot is below what you're trying to achieve, they will subconsciously keep telling you why you're going to fail, why it's not going to work, why you shouldn't do this business, why should you go for this promotion? And your family members do it too.
Yeah, because people are comfortable with you the way you are.
Correct. It's a comfort zone.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want things to change, so I don't want you to change.
Correct.
But they do get over it.
Well, they do usually when you become successful, but they can also be your hindrance, which is why you've got to build people around you. Like the manager that wants to lift you up, those people are going to make a difference in your life, because when you think you can't do it, they're the ones saying, come on, you've got it in you. Like in your story, you didn't necessarily believe that you could do what you did, but you had somebody who operated at a higher autopilot, and he saw it in you and said, no, I'll break her ceiling, because now she's broken her ceiling. She'll be able to stay at this level now.
It's a true story. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And you don't accept when someone says you can't do that. You're thinking, not true. You just haven't seen me do it, or you can't envision. Correct. But I'm sure I can.
Absolutely, which is a great attitude.
Taking the right steps. But Manny, I have so appreciated what you've offered us today here, and also that you're doing 2 back-to-back interviews today early in the morning.
That's fine.
On your side of the equator. So I wish you all the best. Listen, listeners. If you've enjoyed what Manny has shared with you, I will hope that you will share this episode with a friend or a colleague or someone who is interested in exploring this with you further. Please go and rate and review this episode. Go to Manny's site, check him out. You just heard him talk about all the things he has going on. And we will have the links in the show notes so that you don't have to worry about it. Just go to the show notes. They'll be there for you. But check it out, because as you can see, there's much there for all of us to learn and grow from.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Boxx. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahboxx.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.